Hi, I'm Paul Seal from coaching.co.uk. Welcome to this 5th episode in this series where I show you how I do searching in Umbraco V8, and I'm using Examine for searching. I've covered things like surface controllers and render MVC controllers and setting up search service and creating a form and things like that on the previous episode. So you might want to go back to those. In this episode, what we're doing is we are adding in a category to search by. So we're going to add a category multi-checkbox list to one of the pages or one of the types of pages. And then we're going to use that category in our search. We're going to change the text box that we have on the search page to be a drop-down list instead. And then that will allow us to filter the search by those categories. So let's get started. What we want to do first of all is log in to Umbraco. So I've got my site running. I use Control and F5 in Visual Studio to run it without debugging. Just put my username and password in. Yeah, so first thing we want to do then is we want to create a new data type. So if we go to data types and we create a new one, what I like to do, the name convention that I picked up from working at Moriyama, so drop down list. Oh, actually it's multi-checkbox list. Multi-checkbox list. And then this is going to be called category picker. Or category list, that will do. I won't call it a picker because it's not a content picker. What you might want to do when you're doing these categories, you might want to actually change this to be, some people create what we call like a taxonomy where you can pick content items and it goes deep inside others. So you might have a wider category and then within that you might pick a subsection of that category and so on and so on. I'm just trying to keep it simple. So for now, when we talk about categories, we're just going to use this. So it's going to be a multi-checkbox list. So it's going to be checkbox list, and we're going to add some options to this. So what we just need to do is just think of some categories. So I'm going to do news, events, jobs, products, and that will do. Save that. So this is our category list, and we want to just create a composition. So this is going to be a document type without a template, and we're just going to call this categories. That will do. And then what we want to do is we want to create on here, so content, and we will just put in here our new property that's going to use that data type. So we want to just call this category. Now I know in the starter kit they do have categories. So for now we're just going to call this category, and we're going to look for that category or checkbox. Yeah, this is it, multi-checkbox list category. So I'm going to use that and we're going to submit. And we're going to save that. So this is in a composition. So what we can do on the content items that we want to use it on, so we're going to use it on a blog post and a content page, we will just go to compositions on blog post and we will pick categories. So this will inherit the category property and use it on there, and also do the same on content page as well. So just take note of the alias content page like that, and blog post is blog post like that. So when we go to the pages, if we go into the content section and we click on, we have like about us and we have some others. So what we can do is we can just define some of these. So let's say about us is news. About this starter kit can be events. To-do list for this starter kit can be jobs. And we can go into the blog, and then we can just create, tick a few of these and save these. And with Umbraco, you've got this navigation here as well, lower down, which goes back up a level. So we can go to another one. We can just go back through and just start selecting these and saving them. So that was another one. And then I think we have this one here that needs one. Right. So we've added some categories on them. And now what we want to do is we want to be able to filter by them. So first thing we need to do is we need to change how the form works. So instead of it using the text box, it's going to use a drop-down list. And in order to be able to use a drop-down list, we need to change the model that's fed into the partial view, first of all. So we will need to go into the model. So we've got our search view model here, and we need to add a list of categories on here. So what we'll do is we'll do public. Just check I'm still recording. Yep. So we'll do public IEnumerable and then select list item. And we'll need to just add that using for that. I'm going to call this categories. Make that get and set. And then we'll hover, we'll go to this light bulb and it will tell us which using we've not added. So it's system web MVC. So that likes the select list item now. So that gives us the ability to put on the search view model a list of categories basically that is ready set up to be used in the drop down list. And then what we want to do is on the form, on the search form, we need to change where it's got category, we need to change this to be drop down list for. So instead of text box for, it's drop down list for. So it's still for the property called category, but in here we just want to do model.categories. And we can remove that and we can just do, and the default value for it will be all. So that will give us our drop down list for categories and search view model. So let's just have a look to see what that does. At the moment, it might even throw an error, but we'll see. Just go to our search page like this. We don't need the query of Matt. So we may just have an IEnumerable that is empty, and we're either going to get an error here because we haven't loaded in anything for the list of categories, which is right, we don't have that. There is no view data, right, that's okay. So we can set that up now. So what we need to do is we basically want to load in from Umbraco, we want to load in this data type, all the values from it, and load it in so we can read these and put them in our drop down on the front end. And to do that, I wrote a blog post a while ago in July, which basically gives you the code to be able to do this. And it's quite simple. The code is all there for you to copy and paste and add it to your solution. So we're going to add it to our solution. So first thing what we want to do is we want to create an interface for it. So in our services section, we're going to create an interface. And we're going to do new class. And we're going to call this iDataType value service. Now, don't get mixed up with data type service because that's a Umbraco one. So iDataType value service. And this is going to be an interface. So change that to interface. We are going to, in here, we're going to have a method which returns IEnumerable select list item. And again, we'll have to use that using. So we can do that now, system web MVC. And then what we want to do is call this get items from value list data type. Now you can, if you want, just skip ahead and copy and paste this from that blog post. Data type name, and so we're going to pass in the name of the data type, and we're also going to pass in an array of already selected values. So we can just bring that to the next line there. So that's our interface. I'm going to use my shortcut setup, Control U, to remove and sort usings. So now that we have our interface, we need to create our implementation of that interface. So we'll do, on the services folder again, do new class, and we're going to call this data type value service. Don't forget, if I'm going too slow, you can change the speed on YouTube. So we're going to call this data type value service. We're going to inherit from data type value service. And what we can do is straight away, we can just get it to implement interface, and that will just get this set up for us, and it will throw a not implemented exception. Now in this, we do need to use what I already mentioned, the data type value service. So let's create a private read-only data type service. Sorry, this is the Umbraco one. So we need to create, add this as a property, a data type service, and we're going to use dependency injection to bring that in. Now this doesn't know about this, so we need to, using Umbraco core.services, so it's aware of it. And then actually we've got this inside, so what we need to do is just take this out, put this inside the class, but not inside that method. So that's a property there. And then what we want to do is create a constructor for this class. So we'll do public data type value service. And then we want to do data type service. So this is the Umbraco one. We need to pass the Umbraco one in using dependency injection, and so this is already made available to us. So where we've used the composers before to register services and components and things like that, we don't need to do that for this service. It's already been made available for us, and we can just then set our read-only property. So we want to actually put an underscore on that one. Well, this is the convention I like to do. Data type service equals the one passed in, without the underscore. So now that we've set that up, we can go into this method here and start implementing it. And what we want to do is, first of all, we want to have an enumerable of select list item and call it items equals null. And then what we're going to do is we're going to use the data type service to get the configuration of the data type that we pass the name in of. So we'll pass in the name, which will be of that one here. So we're basically, from where we call this service, we're going to pass in this name. But for now, all we have to do is we just have to, in brackets, so we're going to convert this to a value list configuration. And it doesn't know about this yet. It will need a using. So this is an Umbraco core.property editors namespace. So we're going to say use the data type service to get the data type by its name. So data type name, and that was what we passed in there. So use that to get that and give us the configuration of it. So that's quite simple. And we want to define this as a variable. So var data type config equals this. So we're setting that configuration to be this value. And let's just hide this because it's not really giving us anything at the moment. So now we've got our configuration. And then what we want to say is if this config has got any items, so if it's not null and data type config dot items dot any, so if we've got something, let's do something with it. So we want to say our IEnumerable up here that we've defined, items, let's say items equals data type config dot items dot select, and what we're going to do is select it into these items. Basically, we're going to create a new one of these each time. So we're going to do a lambda expression here. So x goes to, and then what we want to do is a new select list item, and we'll just define the values for it in here. So we're going to say the text is going to be x.value, the value is going to be x.value, so it's going to be the same as the text, and if it's selected or not will be whether selected values is not equal to null and selected values contains this value. So it's simple as that. So that will decide whether it should be selected or not. And then after this, we're going to, inside here, just do return items, which also negates this line at the bottom of throw new not implemented exception. So that's our service. So I'm going to use Control and U again to remove and sort usings. Right, so we've created our data type value service. We've also created an interface which just defines what we're going to use. That means then we can now use dependency injection to have this on our controller. So in order to just register it for dependency injection, what we need to do is go into our register services composer, and we just need to register this service. So we do composition.register, and then we want to do open brackets type of, and then open brackets again, and we do idata type value service in rounded brackets, comma, and then we want it to be, so we basically want to, when we use idata type value service, we want it to be an implementation of that. So data type value service, that's the class, the concrete class for it, and then lifetime and a request. Now, if you know more about the lifetime and you know that you can do it for longer or what have you, then feel free to change that to maybe singleton or something. But for now, to be safe, I just get it to be per request because I don't know better at the moment. But feel free to comment and let me know if you do. And then that should actually, if we rebuild the solution, that should mean now that we have this ready to use on our surface, on our render MVC controller to load it in. So let's try and load it into there. So what we want to do is we want to go to our search page controller, which is our render MVC controller. We want to use dependency injection to set this private read-only idata type value service called underscore data type value service. We want to read it in here, so idata type value service. Oops. Oh, it wants me to type it all in there. And then we can do that in here. We can just say underscore data type value service equals data type value service. So this is this is the one we've created. Again, don't get it mixed up with data type service. That's the Umbraco one. We've created one for getting the values from it. So we have that, and then what we want to do once we do have that is we want to basically just before we define the search view model, we want to get an IEnumerable, and we might need to use system.collections here, but basically IEnumerable select list item and then categories equals, and then we're going to use that service, data type value service, and then we're going to use that method. And what we want to do is we want to pass in the name. So we already said we're going to use this. So that's our first variable that we're passing in. And the other one is the selected ones, which is null. We don't have any selected ones at the moment. And it wants to know about that there's something missing here, so it'll be system collections generic that we need to use. So that is us loading that into this property here, and then what we can do is we can pass that to our view model because we've got this defined on here now, and then we can just Control-Shift-B to rebuild the solution. And if we go to the front end, if we reload this now, what we should find is that because we use this code which came from here, we should find that we've now been able to load in from a back office property data type. We've been able to actually load them into this drop down. So that's something useful, even if you're not doing it for search, that's something useful. Now, there might be issues about caching and things like that, so you might just want to look into it a bit more, but this is how I'm getting it into here. So this might not be the most performant way, but I'm just trying to show you a way. Again, you might want to load in from content items, and also you might want to do it as a cached partial or something. So yeah, there's all different things to consider. I'm not saying this is the best, most performant way. This is just a way to load these in here, and it's for you to take this as a simple example and build on it and maybe share it, what you did. It'd be great if you'd comment, and tell people what you've done if you've built on this and taken it further. So that's us loading this in. So we've made a good progress there. And what we want to do now is we want to just have a look at our search service and just think about what are we going to do with this category? Like, how is it being used at the moment? So let's go to our search service and let's look for where we use category. Now, when we did this in an earlier episode, what we did was we said if a category gets passed in, and it will get passed in because if we do this, like if we search now and then we do test, then what we've got is we've got a query equals test and the category equals news. So it is getting passed in. So if it gets passed in, then we want to look for the field. So we want to do a query to say only get the results where it's also the category of that. So it's not an or, it's an and. So this will, if the category doesn't match, then it won't return the results. So like where we had if we change this back to all and just look for Matt, yeah, it's done a fuzzy search there and matched it, but we've got a result. But if we change this to be news and then search, it won't show. And this isn't actually in working yet because searchable categories doesn't exist as a property. So we can see that by logging in and having a look at the examine index values. So if we log back into here, and I'll show you that. If we go into content and say one of these pages that we've already set the property, let's go to settings and we'll go to click on this settings bit here, which gives us examine, and then we can go to examine index, external index, and then we can see 32 fields. Now we should see our new field on here called category, which we have, and as you can see, it's an array of categories. And what we want to do is we want to create a new value which makes it easier to search this. So instead of it being in here like this, what we'll do is we'll just have it comma separated for those categories, or space separated, however we want to do it. So if we close that, we're going to now create another composer. So we have a composer for register services composer, and now we want to actually start putting things into the index. We're going to need to create an indexer composer. So if we go to composing, we do add and then class. And then this new class is called indexer composer. So this is public class and it's going to inherit from iUser composer. Now this won't know about it at the moment, so we need to use a Umbraco core.composing namespace. And then inside this, we want to, well, let's just implement this interface. So we can just show potential fixes, and that will implement that again with the not implemented. And we're going to want to append a component. And before we do, let's just create this component. So public class indexer component.
This might answer.
Oh, hello, Alexa.
Electronic component includes terminal.
Alexa, stop. That was quite funny. I saw her flash up as I started saying the word indexer, and then she pops up. Right, so we're creating a class called indexer component, which inherits from iComponent. And again, it's going to complain that we haven't implemented the interface. So again, let's let it implement it for us. So we've got a initialize and a terminate. And with the terminate, we can just put a comma just to say nothing to terminate. I think it would still work even if you just deleted terminate, but we'll just put that in there for cleanliness. Now this component, we're going to use the examine manager on here. So we need to do a property called private read-only iExamine manager. I'm going to need to use the examine namespace. We'll just put the underscore in front of that. And so let's make sure we use the right namespace. So it's going to be using examine. And then we want to do private read-only Umbraco context factory. And that's going to be Umbraco context factory. So we've got these two properties, and again, we're going to have to use dependency injection to pass those in. So indexer component. So this is our constructor for this class. So we'll do iExamine manager and just call it examine manager. And we're also passing in the iUmbraco context factory. And we'll need to do the right using for that. And I'll tell you why we're using that as well in a moment. So this is, if we want to use the Umbraco context, we have to pass this in and use it. So it's within Umbraco web. And just put that onto a new line. Let's have some squiggly brackets there. And then we're going to say set examine manager to equal examine manager. And set Umbraco context factory to equal either the Umbraco context factory, or if that's already null, then just throw new argument null exception with the name of. And then we say Umbraco context factory. Just saying that it's null, because it shouldn't be null, but it is null, so that's what we're doing now. I'll just move this on to another line just so you can see it. One thing to remember is I am publishing the code now to GitHub, so at the end of this episode, I will just push all the current state of it to GitHub, so you can pull this down. And while I'm mentioning it, I may as well show you that. So this is here. So it's github.com/prjseal and then searching in Umbraco v8 with hyphens separating the words. Right. So we are setting these up so we can use them. So this is just basically us using dependency injection to set these properties so that within our initialize method, we can actually use them. So in here, what we want to do is if the examine manager underscore examine manager, sorry, underscore examine manager dot try get index. So if we can't get the index, and what we want to do is Umbraco indexes, and we're going to have to use another using here, so external index name, and then we'll just, in a second, we're just going to get it to use that correct namespace. So we want to then return, we get out of that the index to use. So what we are asking it to do here is, if you can't get the index, then just return, just exit out of this initialize, and let's just use this umbraco.core.constants. So I think earlier on in this series I wasn't sure of where the constants namespace was. So that's our external index name, and what we can do is we can just go back into our search service and we can update that here because we had it hard coded in external index. So again, we can just paste that in there, and then it won't know about that, so we'll just have to tell it to using Umbraco core.constants. There we are. So that should work. Right. So if you can't get the index, then return. But if you can get the index, then what we're going to do is we're going to be adding or updating to the index a field definition and the type of field that it is. So if we do, when we've got that, we're going to then use the index, and we're going to say field definition collection dot add or update, and we want to add a new field definition. And the field definition, you might have guessed it by now, but basically is going to be this searchable categories. So that's what it's called. And with that, we want to tell it its type. So we use the enum, and we're going to choose the type called full text. And there's lots of different options, and you just got to pick the right one for you. There's full text, sortable, and all sorts. Again, what you can do is, if you need to know more about searching and indexing, you can check it out on the forum. You can also check it out in the documentation, and also there's an official Umbraco training course as well for searching and indexing with Examine, and you can get certified in Umbraco for that course. And you can get so many, basically with the Umbraco official courses, you get so many points, and you can then get like certified Umbraco professional, Umbraco expert, and Umbraco master, depending on how many points you've got from the number of courses that you've done. So yeah, don't forget that as well. So it's all right picking something up from me on YouTube on how I'm doing it, but there's also the official training that you can follow as well. Anyway, let's carry on with this. So what we've done here is we've just told it to either add or update this field called searchable categories. And also what we want to do is we want to bind an event. So we want to say base index provider, like this in the brackets, and then index. So we're basically converting that there so that we can get this property. Now this doesn't know about it, so let's just do a using, and we'll do using examine providers. And now we can say dot transforming value, index values. So attach this event to it. So indexer component underscore transforming so this is what we're going to call it, index values. Indexer component transforming index values. So we're going to create a method under here called that. So it's going to be, I'm just going to copy and paste this. So private void called that. And it's just complaining because it doesn't do anything at the moment. It must have at least one accessor. So we're just going to pass in object, which is sender, and indexing event args, indexing item event args as the variable called e, or parameter, whatever you call it. So inside this one, what we're going to do is we're going to basically see if the ID on the value set is an integer. So we do if int.tryparse e.valueset.id is an integer, so we'll get it to come out with the value out var node ID. So if we can parse that to be an integer, then we're going to use it inside it. Then what we want to do, so the whole point of this is basically, can you find the index? If you can, set this field and also attach this event. So whenever this event runs, it'll also get it to run this here, our custom event. And then what we're going to do is we're going to switch e.valueset.itemType. So this will basically be checking against the content type alias. And we can then say, do a case. So we've got two cases. One of them was blog post, and this was how it was put in there. So we can just go into settings and we can just make sure that it's correct. So click on blog post and just see it's this alias that we need to use. So blog post. So if it's blog post, or if it's the other one, which was content page, so that's content and then page, uppercase P. This is camel casing. If it's either of these two, then do something with it. So in here, we're going to do the code, and this is where we're going to use the get the Umbraco context from that factory. So basically, let's just summarize again, because I don't want to just be a typing exercise. I want to explain what we're doing and why. So what we're doing here is the whole point of this is to take the value that we've got from the category field, and we're going to put it into this searchable categories field. So now what we're doing in here, in this case, is we're doing a using, and we're going to say var Umbraco context equals, and then we're going to use that factory, Umbraco context factory dot ensure Umbraco context. So that's using that. So with our using, we do open and close curly braces. Then what we're going to do is we're going to get the content node. So we already know that the node ID is an integer. So we're going to do var content node equals, and then we can use the Umbraco context now because we've got it. So it's a bit odd there, but basically Umbraco context, and then we do the property Umbraco context off that, and then we say .content, and this is where we can call the method getById and pass in the node ID. So now we've passed in the node ID, we have got an iPublish content here, and we can then, with that iPublish content, so if it isn't null, so if content node is not equal to null, we can then read the category property. So var categories equals content node dot value, and this value, if we remember in examine, it was in here as an enumerable of string. Basically, it was in there as a string array. I don't know if we can go back to examine, but anyway, we don't need to see it. But yeah, it's stored as an enumerable of string. So we want to get that value out of it, called category, return it as an enumerable of string. So now we have our categories, and then what we can say, and I know that it's nested ifs here. If you want to change this, you can, but for simplicity, I'm just doing it this way. If categories is not equal to null, then let's set this value set. So e.valueset.set. And this is where we now actually set this value. So searchable. Now let's just make sure it's correct. So copy and paste that. Searchable categories, we're setting that value. And we are just going to do string.join. And the first one is, what are you joining it with? We're joining it with commas. And what are you joining? Well, we're joining the array of strings. And we'll close that. So that will now basically, wherever we had category stored on a content item, we'll actually store it as another property as well called searchable categories. So we've taken that string array, which was basically JSON array of strings, and we have put it into this comma separated string. Now this is useful for all sorts of things. You could transform other values like the path. Currently the path is comma separated. You might want to separate it by spaces, the path, and then you can start filtering your search based on that path so that you'll only see content from a certain site node and below. You can do that. So that's quite useful and helpful. We might find that we prefer to have a space here rather than a comma, but for now we're going to go with a comma. But just be aware you can adjust this and change it to be however you need it to be. But I think it should still work with a comma. Again, if you know that it doesn't work or you've found problems, it'd be really helpful if you could put that in the comments of the video. Do always appreciate the comments to help other people that's following along that might not know, or you could do with the benefit of your experience. So that should be enough there to actually index this searchable categories. So let's do another rebuild of solution. And let's go to our front end. And let's see, first of all, have we broken the site? Because that's always a problem if you've broken it. Boot failed. The method or operation is not implemented. Compose. So we must have done something wrong here. Do I need to do a clean? So I know I've recorded this whole video. This is the second time I've recorded it now. So I have had this sort of problem before. I'm just going to see if there's anything that I've done. I might need to just kick the web config as well to just restart the site properly. So Control-Shift-B. So first thing I'm going to try, again, I try and leave these errors in, these problems that I'm facing, I try and leave it in so that you can see how I solved it. So I've kicked the config, so that might then do a restart. And restarting might help them because we've added this new composer. So let's see, first of all, if restarting the site helps. So that's not helped. It's still complaining about line 15 of the indexer composer. So let's have a look to see what the problem was. Indexer composer, line 15. Throw new not implemented exception. So we forgot to actually do a vital part here. But that's good. It's good that we left this as throw not new implemented exception, because now it's made it easy for us and we can just actually implement that part that we need to. So all I need to do is just actually use this property here, this that got passed in. So we need to append. So composition.components. And again, it's going to not know about this namespace. So we're just going to use umbraco.core. And then we're going to say append. And then open brackets, indexer component. We want to tell it to append this component. So I've just rebuilt that solution again. So we'll just now try Control and F5, and hopefully that will be enough to reload the site for us. So that was quite an easy one to fix. Fingers crossed it's fixed it. But yeah, there we go. So if we go to the search page and we have a look. So what do we know about the content here? So we know there's an About Us page. And this About Us page has got the name About. So let's search for About. And we can also then filter by the category of news. So About returns these two. And what if we filter by the category of news? It's not returning anything, so that's interesting. So it might be that we don't have that in the index yet, the word news. So let's have a look at the content item here. So ID, let's go to examine. Let's click on settings and then this settings button and then examine. In external index, search for the ID and we'll have a look to see if this searchable categories field has appeared yet. And it hasn't yet. So because it's not appeared, what we might want to do is try one of two things. So first of all, let's see if rebuilding the index works. So field count says 73. And if we went back to that individual one there, it says it's got About Us has got 32 fields. So if we rebuild the index and click on OK, what we're hoping to see is that if we search for that again, it's got 33 fields. So now we know that we've added an extra field on there, which was the field called searchable categories, and it's got news. So if we go back to the front end of the site and we refresh, and I've refreshed there and that's got news in the category. So that's actually returned the result that we wanted. And if we change this events and search, we've actually got the About This starter kit, because if we look in the content, we go to About This starter kit, that one was saved with events. And you can save multiple, so events and jobs. And so also, whilst that's doing that, we can go and have a look at the content for this. So 1121, if we go to settings, settings again, examine management, external index, and then search for 1121, we can see that this has got 30 fields, and one of which is this searchable categories, and it has got comma separated events and jobs. So now if we go back to the front end and we search for About and jobs, that works. If we do About and news, we get the other one, which is there. So that's actually doing the filtering for us. And what happens if we take off the search term and then search? Then we get no results whatsoever. So what we can do is we can go to our search service and we can just modify it slightly just to go up to here, because at the moment it's not doing the search if there aren't any search terms, but now we have a category. So what we can do is we can say if the terms are not null, this check here we can basically take out of there and we can just do it inside here. So just so that we can set this array inside there, and that means that it just won't, it will check to see if it's null or not here, and it just won't apply these. But so that means if we do a rebuild and then go to the front end and just take off those query strings, we'll load up the site again, and then what we want to do is we just want to filter by the category. And hopefully if we do that, we should see some results come through. So there we are. We have now results for About Us and another one. So they both have the category of news. So we can have a look at another one just to be sure that that is correct. So blog, another one, let's just see. Yeah, that did have news. So you can see that we created our data type, we've set the category on it, and then on the front end now we can search and filter by these categories, and we can show all. But because we didn't define anything, it's not actually returning any results there because we didn't have a search term or a category. So one other thing that we can do as well, which I meant to do on previous videos, is actually set up a property for the doc type aliases so that we can pass it in. So if you have a look on our search page controller, at the moment, when we call the search service, we've got this property at the end here, and we set it as null, but it's actually the doc type aliases. So when you're doing your searching, you don't necessarily want to search all document types. You might just have a certain list of document types that you want to show up in the results. So in order to do that, what we can do is create a property. So in our search page controller, we can do a private or public string array, doc type aliases. And I'm saying public because later on, if I do another video in the future, what we might do is move this to a searching render MVC controller, which we can then inherit from and use on our others. So that there's less things in here. So all of this will be abstracted away. It will just be in the one we inherit from. And all we would do is probably just set the properties like the document type aliases and the page size and things on the actual controller. Anyway, I don't want to confuse the issue at the moment, but if we just do this as a get and set, so we've got our property, and then in our constructor, we can just tell it to set these values. So doc type aliases equals a new array, and this is an array of string values, but we can just straight away put in these two that we're interested in. So that will be blog post and content page. And then where we pass in null at the moment, we can pass in the doc type aliases. So before we were able to return a result for Matt, which was a person document type. I'm not sure if that's what it's called, but under people we had one for Matt. Now Matt shouldn't show in the results when we actually do the search. So Matt is in here as a document type, which is a person. So if we go to here and we search for Matt now, we should receive no result. Oh, we have got it. So obviously there's something wrong. That's good though that we've spotted that. So now we've got document type aliases, and we are passing that into this. So let's just see where we're going wrong, because it's good to spot it and work it out. So we're saying pass this through doc type aliases. Are we actually filtering by these doc type aliases? And I don't think we are. So we can do an and. Oh, we've got node type aliases. And we're saying if it's not null. Let's just rebuild the solution. What we might have to do is just debug and just see what's getting passed through. It might be a case that isn't getting passed through for some reason, and we can just debug it when we get to here. So if we do debug attached to process, and because I'm using IIS Express, I just look for that in the list. And then we load the page. It might be that I didn't do a rebuild, who knows? We shall see. So document type aliases, it is coming through as null. You see that check there, null. So let's see at what point it's null. it might just be that we're defining it too late. So search page controller. So we're saying that set this property there. So let's just debug here and let's refresh again. So I'll put a breakpoint inside the index action result. Oh, I might need to continue first, right? So I'll put that in here. And what I want to do is just check, is that property set? So the property is set, blog post and content page. So that's good, that's set. Now what we want to do is just step down to this. So I'm going to F11 into this. First of all, I'm hovering over doc type aliases. That is set. That's F11. Your step into request resulted in an automatic step over of property. That's fine. And that's going into here. So it looks like we're actually passing. So on here where we do get page of search results, which is the one that actually returns back the examined search results, we aren't passing over the doc type aliases that we sent in. So here we can see that they are defined and we would be able to use them, but the problem we've got here is we're passing through null. So we need to stop this. We've found the problem straight away. We can copy that value there. We just delete the comma and press comma again just to make sure we're on the right one. Replace this word null with doc type aliases. Do a rebuild solution again, and we've found the culprit, and that should then pass that through to the service, and it should properly work now, and it should only return results for content page and for the other one, which was blog post. So we're only going to return blog posts and content pages in our search results now. So what we've got here, because we've done that, and because we have in our search service, if we go to the search service, what it's doing, because we've got something, our criteria has something to query when we do this bit here, is actually returning some results. So these are all just blog posts and content pages. And then we can filter these like this, and we can, so that's pretty good. And then we can just change in the word starter and search. So we've got about this starter kit and to-do list for the starter kit. So I think that's enough for this episode. So what we've achieved here is the ability to filter by category and also filter by the doc type aliases. And you can take that on and do other things with it. Perhaps you want to store the doc types that you want to search by, maybe in the back office. For this search, you might want to store the doc type aliases, and then you can pass that through from there, from this content item to your search service to say, only search for these doc type aliases and things like that. But yeah, I think that's gone well. I'm going to commit this code and push it up for you to be able to refer to if you need to. Just a few things to mention. So I've already mentioned the courses that you can do for Umbraco. Don't forget you can go on the forum and ask. So just because you did the video on YouTube through me, I might be a bottleneck and slow you down if you're waiting for a reply from me directly. There are lots of questions on the forum from people that have followed my videos and they want a bit of help, and people are always happy to help in the Umbraco community. So yeah, ask your questions on here. You can mention the videos that you've watched, and that might help people as well to see what you've been shown, and they can say, oh yeah, you've been shown wrong, or I'm not saying everything I do is wrong or anything. I'm just saying that there might be something that I might have misinformed you about, or I can see why it's not working. Did you do what Paul did here? Also, 24 days in Umbraco. I think I mentioned it previously, but it's now in full swing, and we've got 17 content items here for you to read. You just imagine this is in Umbraco, and these are all individual pages that have been written and edited, I've written for them before, so I know that it definitely is in Umbraco. But yeah, so these are all these different articles. There's loads of tips that you can pick up about Umbraco. Definitely a good resource, and it's not just 1 year worth. They've got lots of years going back. I don't know where the index is for all the years, but yeah, I think you can go back several years, maybe 2016 at least. Yeah, there's so you can see the numbers of years up here. So loads of articles. For you, you probably, when you do Google searches on about Umbraco, you probably get directed to some of these articles. So yeah, it's basically an advent calendar for the whole of December up till Christmas, I think, and you'll get 24 days worth of articles. So thanks for watching. If you did like the video, please click on like and subscribe to my channel if you're not already subscribed, and I think you can do the bell notification to let you know when a new video's been uploaded. If you do want to, you can go to codeshare.co.uk/coffee and buy me a coffee. Thanks to those that have done. I do appreciate it, but it's not necessary. No one has to. It's just if you can afford to and you want to, then there's somewhere for you to do that. But again, it's all just voluntary. It's up to you. You can do the whole series for free. It's not a problem. All my videos on YouTube are free. And I think that's it. I think we can end it on a high. It actually worked. Second time doing this video last week. That's why we're a week late, because last time it all failed. So it doesn't always work first time. Don't always get to do it in one take. So yeah, thanks ever so much for watching. I'll see you on the next episode. Bye.